And we will go ahead and get started. So, and if people join, then Ashley will bring them in. Welcome everyone to the first ever virtual open house that Creative City has ever done. These are strange times and we're working on adapting the best we can. And we're really, really glad that you were able to make time to tune in and join us. Most of us have probably been involved in some form of video chat over the past 3 weeks, but just to sort of lay the structure of how we're going to do this, we have all of our guests muted as they come in. The three people who will be talking are myself. I'm Marisa Canino. I'm the executive director at Creative City. I am also a school parent. I have a 4th grader, a 2nd grader, and an incoming kindergartner, all of whom are in the house right now. And so you may meet them by accident at some point. And so I'm going to be running our presentation, and I'm joined by Ashley Horde and Tracy Mathena. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves real quick. Ashley?
Hi, I'm Ashley Horde. I'm the enrollment coordinator, and you've probably gotten several emails from me in the last few weeks. I also have I'm a parent, and I have 2 kids at Creative City. One is in 5th grade and will be moving to middle school next year. And I also am a parent of a kindergartner. And yeah, that's about it for me. Tracy, your turn.
Hi, I'm Tracy Mathena. I'm the school principal. I have 350 some odd children. They all attend Creative City. And I am pleased as punch to be their principal. I've been there this is my 5th year. And the school is 7 years old, so I am growing with the school. And I am very excited to be able to speak with all of you today.
Thank you. So you'll be hearing our 3 voices over the course of the presentation part. I see someone waving, so I'm going to wave back. I see some of us have our video on, some don't. All of that is fine. We will be using the chat if you have burning questions that you want to write down before you forget them. And Ashley is going to be keeping an eye on the chat and, if possible, answering questions in that space, or we'll hold them to the end if it needs more of a verbal response. And then at the end, we will, at least Ashley and I and Tracy, if she's able, will hang out and we'll be able to answer some questions by discussion afterwards. But because some people might have limited time or other demands at home, we want to make sure we get through the presentation first so we can at least get you that content. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll run through our open house presentation that we have adapted to be our first virtual open house. So the short story, Creative City has, we can no longer say we're a brand new school, but we are a young school. We've been around now for 7 years. We focus on small classes, hands-on learning, and arts education. We were parent founded, and we have grades K through 5 in our school. Over the course of this presentation, we're going to talk about the core elements of our school and some things that make us unique and really show our values as a school community. We'll talk about, among other things, place-based education, arts integration, play-based kindergarten, diverse and cooperative community and what that looks like at our school, and our identity as a community school. And I do want to invite Ashley and Tracy to hop in at any point if I'm missing content or if there's further explanation that's needed about anything. Quick facts. We started in 2013. When we opened, we just had grades K through 2, and we grew with our students. And so we have now, and have been for several years, at our full K through 5 size. We have an average of 22 students in each class. And in general, we have 3 classes per grade. So that means that at our full size, we will have 396 students throughout the school in all grades K through 5. And it's our hope to expand to grades K through 8. That's not something that is immediately on the horizon, but is something that we're continuing to work towards right now as a school community. I want to start with talking about the core academics in our structure for that. We have a couple of slides about literacy, math, science, and social studies. And I would like to invite Tracy to talk us through that if she's able to. Tracy?
Yes. And just to kind of preface what I'm about to say now, I'm going to try to pop back in at the end of this because I have a district meeting with our superintendent that's also supposed to be scheduled sometime during this. So I want to make sure you know that I am definitely accessible for questions. I just might have to pop out so I can go to another meeting virtually. So let's start a little bit and talk about our literacy. At Creative City, we have a literacy program that features, it's integrated balanced literacy program. So Fontes and Pinnell is our primary source of reading, phonics, and woodwork. And Readers and Writers Workshop are the way that we handle having our children interact with comprehension, understanding, cause and effect, things like that, all the skills that come with becoming a very competent and skilled critical reader. For Writers Workshop, we use authentic writing structures to make sure that all children understand that they are writers from the moment they enter school, whether they know all of their letters, whether they have all of the information that they need for their for handwriting. They are writers because they're storytellers. So through authentic ways, they learn to get their story onto paper, to edit, to peer edit, to self-edit, to understand from the drafting process to their final product. And it's all done in an authentic way. So in doing this, when we say balanced literacy, everything that they're learning from their sounds and letters through the comprehension of what they read and understanding how that works to then creating written products themselves are the balanced literacy program that we use for Creative City. For math, we use the Eureka Math program. It's actually the same as Baltimore City Public Schools, but we use a thinking method from concrete, pictorial to abstract to make sure that number sense is really what students are able to do. It's not a drill and skill type thing. It's not memorization. It is truly understanding math skills and concepts by first interacting with them to understand number sense, understanding to in the pictorial so that they can represent it in different ways. And that leads to the higher maths and being able to do it in abstract ways that are needed for things like algebra later on when they move forward. For science and social studies, we follow Common Core standards. And you want to go back to that initial slide that had all of the, the science and social studies are, we follow all Common Core standards actually through literacy and through math, but science and social studies, we're using hands-on projects and interdisciplinary study. We have something that we've written called PAT projects. These are projects that are academic for each trimester, and they go from whatever the topic happens to be. It could be science related, could be social studies related, and it integrates all of the different subjects within the projects. Some of these have to do with creating habitats for animals and actually learning about the animals first to then create them themselves. We've done different types of projects throughout each of the grades. And so each grade has its own core curricular based science and or social studies projects that they work on throughout each of our trimesters. And again, we're on trimesters instead of quarters. So that's, I'm sorry, I was speaking that without saying that first. Next slide.
Thanks. I had these that you have already run through. If you have anything else to add about these.
Let me see. Nope, because I talked about how it works through all of those. Nope, I think I got it.
Writers Workshop, math.
Writers Workshop.
And so we try to stay pretty succinct when we're talking about our academics in this open house forum, but absolutely, if you have questions about that, go ahead and put them in the chat now, and we can get into more depth once we run through a little bit more content about our school.
I do realize I forgot one thing.
Yes.
I know this is going to come up. And so I want to make sure that you are aware that we had students at various levels of need. And these go from students who have IEPs to students who have been determined that they are what's called talent development or gifted and talented, and everything in between. So we differentiate our learning in order to address all of the learning needs for the students that we serve. So I don't know, sometimes people hear things like charter schools don't have children with IEPs or with special needs, and that is not true. We definitely serve all students and all needs, and we differentiate and provide services to meet their needs.
Thank you. It's strange for us to be running an open house without physically being in the schoolhouse. And so what I've tried to do is add in some photos at this point, just to give you a sense of space and the learning environment if you haven't yet had a chance to visit our school. So let me go ahead and share those, and Tracy and I can talk through those with you. I've tried to grab at least one photo from every grade level and take you on my best approximation of a virtual tour. So this is a photo from kindergarten. Our kindergarten classes will very often be working on the carpet. This is a full group lesson where you see the teachers and the teacher's aide working the students through a lesson on the carpet. And then often they'll move into small group work that might happen at the tables, in small groups on the carpet, on the whiteboard. There's a lot of flexible use of space because small people are not built to sit still for 7 hours a day. And so in these photos, you'll see a lot of examples of students working in all spaces in the classroom. On the left is an example of a first grade class doing some letter sorts and word sorts, and a quick snapshot of a quiet reading corner in one of our classrooms. This is a picture of both a second grade and a third grade class at different points in their day. And again, you're seeing that there's small group work, there's carpet work, there's flexible seating in the classroom, really to continue to keep people engaged and manage energy levels and sometimes fidgetiness. This is a really beautiful classroom, one of many beautiful classrooms, show how we create different spaces within a single classroom. This is a third grade room in this particular instance. A few more images of just the classroom space in one of our third grade rooms. Our teachers really work hard to make sure that it's comfortable, that there's alternate seating areas, quiet nooks for taking a break. This is a fourth grade class. Even fourth graders get down on the carpet. This class is doing a full group activity on the carpet at this moment with Miss Hawkins. And then in fourth and fifth grade, our furniture changes a little. You'll see these kind of funny trapezoid desks. We like them a lot because they can be put together for group work, but then quickly turn into individual workspaces if students need to be doing something a little more independent. Here we see them in an English language arts lesson where they're doing a sort on punctuation. And another image from fifth grade where students are working near each other but independently in their classroom. And so that was my best take at a virtual tour, but I wanted to show you as many different spaces and types of learning as possible to really give you a sense of what a day in the life looks like in the classroom. Tracy, did you have anything to add to those images? I tried to pick my best assortment I could find.
No, it's so weird not being in the school to be able to show some of these tours. But I think one of the things that I would point out is that you notice that there's different lighting, there's different configurations of the classrooms. So the teachers really are very mindful of what students might need in order to be comfortable in their space, not only physically comfortable, but like mentally comfortable in the space as well.
So moving on, there's a few things we talk about that I want to make sure we define for you and really explain what it looks like in our school. You'll hear these phrases a lot: place-based, arts integrated, hands-on. These are topics that are very interrelated and have very specific meanings in our school. And Tracy, please jump in at any point.
Will do.
Place-based education. And so when we're talking about place-based education, we're talking about using the built-in natural environment around us as a foundation for student learning. We're talking about making connections with nature. We're talking about making connections with our community and with our city. And the reason that our school chose place-based education as one of the core philosophies that were important to us was because we want learning to be authentic. We want learning to be deeply grounded in what children already know and experience in their everyday lives outside of school. Because when children are talking about something they already know, they're already an expert. They're already deeply engaged, and they have the confidence to move into the lessons to extend that knowledge that they might not have if the learning felt disconnected from their everyday life. And place is relative to how old a student is and where they are developmentally. In kindergarten, we draw a real tight circle around place. We talk about home and school and family and self. And as our students get older, their sense of place expands. We could talk about our community in Park Heights. We can talk about the Chesapeake Bay watershed, the city of Baltimore. We can start expanding our view because students can understand their relation in a larger place. And I'll give some examples of projects in a moment. But in the spirit of defining all those things, so you know what we're talking about when we say these words, let me talk about arts integration for a moment. Arts integration is not only valuing art for art's sake, which is extremely important, but also using the arts as a way to connect students to all different subjects that they're learning in school. So we weave the art through the curriculum. We may pair an art form with a math lesson or a reading lesson. For instance, music and math pair really beautifully together because music at its core is rhythm and patterns and counting. We know that arts integration can help reach a wide variety of learning styles because not every child learns the same. What one student may understand really deeply from the worksheet or the text, someone else might need to interact with differently in order to really deeply understand it. And so that's where arts integration comes in. The image on this slide is a huge mural that's on the first floor of our building. That is the culminating project of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders studying the Chesapeake Bay watershed with a visiting artist who works in clay. And so this particular mural is, oh gosh, at least 15 feet long and is a literally huge example of arts integration, but they're not always physically that big. There's lots of different ways that arts integration can look. And we talk about hands-on projects. That one is a little more self-explanatory, but just to give a sense of what that looks like in our school, students will regularly spend time involved in project work. It'll look different in different classrooms and in different grade levels, but a project is generally going to span more than one day and often multiple days or even multiple weeks as we get into the older students. Ms. Mathena already explained how project themes will tie into science and social studies as well as math and literacy. And what I'd like to do is move forward just to give you a couple of examples from different grade levels of what these projects and experiences might look like. I've tried to be as photo heavy as I can since we are in a virtual space right now. This I've dropped in really quick because I wanted to give an example of how we are taking project-based, place-based work into our at-home work packets while we're working remotely with students right now. I won't linger on this too long, but Ms. Mathena developed a really beautiful series of journal prompts helping students sort of process what's going on in the world around us, as well as refining their writing skills with something that's really personally relevant to them during this time that we're doing school remotely. I'm not sure if Tracy might have stepped out, but if you're still here, Tracy, is there anything else you'd like to add about this journal series?
I'm laughing because I didn't know you were going to slip that one in there. I love it. I can say that, oh, wait a minute, I can say something. This, I'm trying to look at it, yes. This is the 2nd and 3rd grade version of this journal. When I developed it thinking developmentally appropriately in mind. So there's a K1 version that has questions like this, but it's more leading. So, and the lines are look like what they would usually use in a classroom. There's more space for pictures. so that they would be able to interact with these topics in their own developmental way. And then for 4-5, there is less leading. It is just the question is there, and they should be at the place where they would be able to communicate in writing the ways that they can answer the question. They also have a picture that they can draw as well, but for their artifact. But I think it's important that we recognize that each of the grades and students can be at different developmental spaces. Parents can also, if they know that their kid might do better with the K1, even though there might be in 2 or 3, they can go and get that journal. So I want to make sure that you understand that we meet our children where they are to get them where they need to be.
Yeah, so I dropped that in at the suggestion of one of our teachers last minute, because I think it's a really great example of how we're still trying to live our school values while we're working remotely. The rest will be examples of what's happened previously in school and some more traditional place-based arts integrated hands-on projects. And I'll just walk through them fairly quickly to respect everyone's time. In this one, kindergartners are exploring native wildlife through printmaking. And so in the art room, as well as in their classroom, they studied animal prints. We happened to have an actually snowy day. This was not this year. Students went out and looked for prints in the snow, made them in the classroom, really learned about what they looked like, and ended up with a pendant that they could wear to remember the project. And so this was using the natural environment around us and our animal neighbors as a foundation for a project. In kindergarten, I talked about using home, school, family, and self as a foundation for place. And so these are a few examples of how kindergarteners have done some mapping of their classroom, of the school grounds, to understand the place around them, to work on labeling and developing their writing skills, and how we're all related to one another in this space. Field trips and field experiences are a huge part of arts integration, place-based learning. This is just a few of many, many field trips our students have participated in. Starting in the top left, our first graders generally go to the local fire station every year. This is an example of one of those trips. Top center is a group of our students who went, well, is one student with a group who went to the zoo. Top right, some of our students went out to Great Kids Farm as part of an extension of a science lesson they were doing about how plants grow. And the bottom row are some of our older students. And the bottom left, our 5th graders go every year to BizTown, which is a really great elementary career development activity where they take on these different business roles and really get to experience it in this really cool space called BizTown, and our students usually love it. And then the other photo on the bottom is a trip to the BMA, where almost all of our students have been through the BMA as part of a great relationship that we have with them this year. Tracy, do you have anything to add to these? It's okay if you don't.
No.
Field trips are really important. And then projects. And so I'm going to try not to talk too long about projects, although I get very excited. I'm just going to give you a few snapshots. In grade 3, something that we and the students all loved was a place-based adaptation that a 3rd grade class did of Alice in Wonderland. And so the students got to see Alice in Wonderland at Center Stage. If you remember a year or 2 ago when there was a really beautiful production at Center Stage, we took a field trip to Center Stage. The students read the text with their teacher, and then they imagined what it would look like to have an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland that took place in our neighborhood in Park Heights. And that's where Tiana and Wonder Heights took shape. And so they reimagined the entire story taking place at our school with local wildlife that you'll see pictured in costume, and a sort of fantastical story that was like Alice in Wonderland, but taking place at and around our school in Park Heights. So they wrote the script together as a class. They costumed. A parent who's a videographer actually made the video, and you can look it up on YouTube. We can send out the link for anyone who's interested. And so this is the result of many years of embedded PDs that we've done with Center Stage over time since our school was very young. And some of our teachers, having worked through playwriting workshops with an artist in residence in their classrooms, have really built up the skills to be able to do these things themselves with their classes as we have things emerge that seem like great opportunities. And so that is one of my favorites. In grade 2, this is a snapshot of some photos of an arts integrated science-based activity around learning about our body and the human skeleton. And so it's just a couple snapshots. You'll see the way the black paper was folded. It was with our art teacher to make sure that they understood the scale and proportion of the human body. And so those folds are actually intentional to break it up into the portions so their drawing could be proportionate. And so this is an arts integrated science lesson that spanned both the regular classroom and the art room as they were learning about the skeletal system. This is another huge favorite of mine. We see versions of this project every year in our kindergarten class. Again, as we're exploring home and school and family and self. There's a really beautiful book called The Colors of Us that we use so frequently in our classroom. And in this case, this teacher used it as a foundation for not only a self-portrait project, but a life-size self-portrait project. So the pictures sort of speak for themselves, but everyone blended their own paint color that matched their natural skin tone, chose materials to match the texture and color of their hair, got traced on a huge piece of butcher paper, and then used the tracing in themselves to not only paint in their own selves, but also express what they were experiencing with their 5 senses, what they liked to eat, what they liked to smell, what their favorite thing was to look at. So it was also a science and 5 senses exploration as part of this really beautiful self-portrait project. And then they were hung all over the school, huge and life-size, and it was wonderful. Under the umbrella of arts integration comes the different ways that we celebrate our student artists. And so every year, possibly with the exception of this year, which is killing me, but every year we have our annual student art show at the Walters Art Museum, where every student has at least one piece of art on display, and we have a huge family reception, including some performances. To our knowledge, we're the only Baltimore City school, or possibly the only school in Maryland, that has our own show at the Walters. Many districts or school consortiums have shows, but we're the only one, I think, that has our very own school show, and we're really proud of that. We were winners of the Young Playwrights Festival, not once, but, oh, Tracy, how many times? 3 times? Were we? 3 times. The Young Playwrights Festival is this amazing opportunity where playwrights from Center Stage will work with our students to write an original play in their classroom. We usually embed this in our 2nd grade, sometimes our 3rd grade, and then it's entered. And this is a class who had their play chosen as a winner and had it performed by professional artists. And so the students got to go to the show and were treated like celebrities with this sort of like backstage red carpet treatment, and got to take a photo on stage with the actors afterwards. So that was a huge accomplishment for them. And we celebrate our school music program as often as we can. We have both winter and spring concerts featuring all grade levels every year. And these are just a few of many examples of performances we have of our students participating in our music program. These drums you see on the left are featured prominently in our music program. Also, we have a gorgeous set of wooden xylophones that you don't see here, but our older students especially use a lot. And in our younger grades, we do a lot of movement. The scarves you see, we do a lot of dance in all grades. And our music teacher uses a method of music instruction that relies heavily on movement, because that's what meets kids where they are and allows them to really experience music fully with their whole body. Tracy, do you have anything to add to that portion before I move on?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
Play-based kindergarten. Play-based kindergarten is something we talk about very frequently. We have mentioned over the course of this conversation that we know and respect that young children, elementary students, are not programmed to sit still for 7 hours a day. But there's a variety of ways that we can meet them, especially our kindergartners, where they are in a space that's developmentally appropriate and is really going to set the foundation for lots of learning. And so in kindergarten especially, we value student-directed play as an opportunity for learning and for skill building and social development. Every kindergartner's day is going to have time for child-directed center play in their day, and that means that the blocks come out and the dinosaurs and the cars and the dress up and the toy kitchen, all of those will come alive for students, at least once a day, in a time where they can be interacting through play with one another, but also reinforcing what they've learned in other parts of their school day, because they might be acting out the story that they experienced in read aloud. They might be acting it out in the puppet center. They might be working through their math concepts when they're in the blocks. Play is not just play, but play is one of many ways that students who are 5 and 6-year-old process their learning and really deepen their understanding of academic content. And it's also a way that they really build important, critical social and emotional skills that are firing so fast when kids are this age. If someone accidentally knocks down your block tower, you need to learn how to navigate that in a way that is productive. If there's only one really cool pair of dress-up shoes and 2 people want it, you need to navigate that as well. And so during this time of child-directed play, teachers are supporting students through those situations, as well as helping them reinforce academics. And it's not just for kindergarten. We prioritize daily recess for students in all grades. I cannot emphasize this enough. Every child goes outside for recess every day, unless it's pouring down rain or below freezing. Getting outside is hugely important for us, for all of our students. And we go to great lengths to make sure that that can happen for everyone. We're nearing the end, and so we're going to get to your questions really soon, but just a couple of things I want to make sure I highlight, and please, Tracy, jump in if you feel so moved. Whole child supports are really important to us. We really understand that students need to be learning social and emotional skills right alongside academics, or else the academics can't be fully successful. Play-based kindergarten that I just described is one of those ways we emphasize that. We also use a structure called responsive classroom. We embrace restorative practices throughout our entire school. And we have a team that is our re-engagement support team, who is there specifically to support the social and emotional needs of our students. And Tracy, I think this would actually be a great place for you to expand on those topics a little bit, if you could.
I'm sorry, I had my mute on for a second. Can you just go back to what it was that you were saying?
Yeah, if you could just touch on restorative practices and the re-engagement support team briefly and what that looks like in the day-to-day.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry guys, I'm literally looking at 2 different screens right now because another meeting is about to start, so please forgive me. Responsive classroom is an approach to teaching. So it is the way through which all of our teachers are delivering instruction. For example, we have in every classroom at every grade level, we have something called morning meeting, where everybody comes in, they are greeted by their teacher, they share something that's planned, there's an activity, and then there's a message that sets them on the path for the rest of their day. That's responsive to the needs of the classroom because, as you know, the children come to school from all their different backgrounds and all their different families, and you have to be responsive to how they may be coming to engage with education. So starting with a community type structure in your classroom is very responsive. There are different ways you also implement instruction through responsive classroom, which things like interactive modeling, which helps students see what it is the expectation is, the fact that they create the norms that are going to be going on in their community of learners, so that they, structure, whether they're, what's an inside voice, what's a number 2 voice, what's a number 3 voice, and when to use it. These are all responsive and make them part of the classroom community in a way that develops the ownership over what they're learning. Restorative practices are the ways that we're using to help our children sort of navigate their own emotional space. So I think you've probably heard a lot about, restorative practices. in education. A lot of places are using it. But we have trained our staff in being able to, each of the teachers to be able to do it, which is helping the children remediate their own problems if there comes a time when there's an issue, trying to find strategies instead of reacting to every single thing that might upset them, trying to find strategies to think through them before they react in a way that's not going to be conducive to solving the problem. And we have a set of staff members, the re-engagement support team, that is trained to work with not only teachers but with individual students. They do check-ins with students. They go into the classroom and maybe bring the kids out and help them restore by holding circles, community circles, to talk through what some situations might be. And so to have all of these supports in place for the children and for the staff, it helps make sure that there is very little instructional time loss to things that might disrupt an entire class, and that's its goal. Social worker, did you get to those pieces yet?
No, I didn't. Just to sort of acknowledge the really great team that we have in our school.
Yes.
We have a full-time social worker in our building, a part-time school psychologist who works with students who have specifically identified needs, and a full-time mental health clinician through a great partnership with Catholic Charities who's on site in our building. We also, new this year, have a really fabulous mentorship program with our partners at Above It All. And so through that team, we can work with a great number of students. Some students may access more than one of those resources, but really what all of those resources mean is that we can meet students at where their level of need is and be able to find them the avenue that makes the most sense for them to support them in being their best at school and otherwise. And so we're really proud of having that team in place. I'll do this briefly, even though there's a lot of words on the screen. We talk a lot about diverse and cooperative community, and basically that means we want everyone to have a voice. We want our students to have a voice in decision-making about school culture. One of the main ways that happens is through our student assembly, where in grades 1 through 5, every classroom has a student assembly representative elected by their peers, who they meet weekly on Wednesday mornings, and they talk about issues that are relevant to them and to the school. And sort of flipping to the highest level of diverse and cooperative community, our board of directors represents all stakeholders in our school. It always has at least 50% parents on our governing board of the school. We always have at least 2 members of our instructional staff on the board, community representatives. Ms. Mathena and I are also board members. And so making sure that we have that diverse and inclusive body who are making big picture decision making for our schools also really, really critically important to us, because we want to be a space where it's not one person making all the decisions, but making sure that we're always getting as full input as possible and moving forward with a lot of collective voice. We're also a community school. And so what a community school means to us is that we not only want to be an excellent school during school hours when we're teaching students, but we want to make sure that we are a hub of support for the entire family and for the community around us. We have after school programming, after school care, community-based events that are hosted at our school, parent trainings and workshops, programs including our school-based food pantry with the Maryland Food Bank, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, mentoring, which I described, community garden partnerships, and lots more. And so that is a too simple snapshot of what being a community school means to us. But I always want to try to give that, that identity of ours voice in these conversations as well. And here's a few images. I feel like pictures are speaking a little louder right now since we're remote. A few images. STEM Night, a creative city on the left, where we bring families and students together to do hands-on science exploration. On the right is one image from Trunk or Treat. We do a really good event near Halloween every year, where it can be a safe place to put on your costumes if that's what you enjoy, and come around, decorate your trunks, give out candy. And so that's something that's not only for our students, but also for the community around us. We have always really embraced gardening and that connection of nature with our students. And right now, the main way that that looks is a great partnership with an urban farm that's 2 blocks away from our school. On the left is our students visiting the farm in August as part of our professional development and trying to figure out the best way to use that resource with our students. And on the right is a 4th grade class who went to visit the farm right before, I think it was the day before schools were closed in Maryland, very, very recently. And in the center is Farmer Chippy, who's a great community leader and farming advocate in our neighborhood, very close to our school. And a few images of what's going on after school in our building. So UEC at the top left is our fee-based aftercare, before and aftercare program that's based at our school. They're a licensed child care provider that we've invited in to make sure that families who need it have access to care before and after school. They open an hour before school for families who need before care, and they're open until 6 o'clock every day after school. And there's a process to register with them. The rest is sort of enrichments and after school activities that happen. We have the Charm City School of Self-Defense, which is a karate program that's based in our school. I've already mentioned scouting. We have a VEX robotics team at our school. The image on the bottom left is Branching Out, which is our school-based literacy intervention program after school for students who need that extra sort of boost with their literacy skills. And so our school really is alive 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. basically every day of the week. And we have many, many partners. And this is only a short list. So at this point, I'm so sorry. Families come from all over the city. This is a quick image that speaks for itself, but we always try to tell people that basically wherever you are, there's probably another Creative City family not far from you. And we do try to support families in connecting with one another for carpool or other things that they may need as an extension of our school village, because we know sometimes it takes a few extra hands. So our school hours are 8:15 to 2:45 every day. Our doors open at 8 a.m. every day, and we dismiss early at 12:45 every Wednesday. I make sure that I let people know that. Many schools have an early dismissal day, and ours is Wednesday every week. And so at this point, we have come to the end. Phew. I promise you, we tried to make that as concise as we could, but there was so much we wanted to share, especially since you weren't physically in our building. Ashley, are there questions in the chat that
there sure are?
All right.
Yeah, I was watching that. I was like, ooh.
I'm just going to start at the beginning, and we'll just go through them because I think that's probably the fairest way.
Before you start that, I have, like I said, the other screen for my other meeting up.
Right.
So when I see that it's about to start, you'll see me probably mute my stuff here, but I'll be listening in case I can mute them and then answer a question.
Got it. Okay, our first question that we got was about after school programming, which we talked about a little bit, but kind of like what the cost is and if it fills up.
Sure. So for the fee-based aftercare, there's a rate sheet that I don't have in front of me, but that we can get out to anyone who needs it. And you can also look them up at their website, uecprograms.com. Ashley, is it .com or .org?
Yes, it's .com.
Yeah. And maybe you can put that in the chat. And so the reason it's hard to speak the rates off the top of my head is that it varies depending on whether you have one child or multiple children, if you're doing every day, if you only need 1 day a week. And so the takeaway is that they're very flexible. For my own family, I use drop-in care. Being at the school, I can often pick up my kids on time, but not always. And so if I let them know the day before I need care, I use the drop-in option with them. Some families need care every day, and they're certainly equipped for that. Some, for instance, only need it on Wednesdays when we dismiss early, and they have extended care beginning at our early dismissal. So they're equipped for all of that, but their rates vary depending on which option you choose. And so the easiest way to get the detail on rates is to look at their website. There's a Creative City tab. They're also at multiple other schools. And so far, I have not experienced them filling up. There might be points where they keep a short waiting list so they can make sure that their staffing stays in line with the expected 1 to 15. They need 1 staff for every 15 students as a childcare requirement. But I have not heard of families not being able to access it.
Another person wanted to know how the trimester system works opposed to a quarter system.
Had to unmute, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Basically, the only difference is when your child is going to get a progress report and a report card. I mean, the same instruction is just a longer amount of time. Quarters are usually 10 weeks, trimesters are usually 13 to 14, depending. And so what happens is it gives, for us, it gives us a longer time to work with children before we're reporting out on their progress. So the first trimester, for example, starts from the first day of school and it ends usually the last week of November or like the very first week of December, depending on how that flips. And so that is really the only difference because it gives us a longer time to work with students to be able to show progress. Doing it, you can still ask for progress updates at any time during the trimester, whether it's through a progress report or just checking in with your teacher and saying, how is so-and-so doing? But you'll hopefully have those relationships with the teachers that you will know what is going on with your student in any of the subjects. So it really just has to do with grade reporting.
Someone else asks about a school nurse, and I wanted to answer it because I was like, oh, that's an easy question, but I also want everybody to hear the answer. We do have a school nurse. She is full-time. We also have a part-time nurse that's in there, I think, 2 or 3 days a week. We have several students that, you know, need to have that full-time nurse available for them. And we are happy to say that we do have that capability at our school.
And our school nurse actually is, our school nurses are health department nurses. Many schools have health aides, and both of ours are from the Baltimore City Health Department. And it doesn't mean that, you know, necessarily that that's good or bad. It just means that they are licensed nurses through the health department for Baltimore City.
We didn't show any pictures of the hallways during our presentation. Someone was interested in seeing some pictures of the hallways. I do want to say that our hallways are amazingly decorated with bulletin boards and class projects that the students are working on. I'm always very impressed by that I can, because my kids won't tell me sometimes because kids are like, how's your day? And they grunt at you. But I can always kind of go by a bulletin board and see, you know, what they've been working on. So I really appreciate that. So sorry that we didn't have any, you know, clear pictures of hallways, but the hallways
I could put someplace. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not sure
we can put
how
it on the Facebook, or I can send it through email, either way.
Because I've got plenty. I can definitely show you some.
We don't have any sport activities besides, you know, we have PE that the kids are in, and then we do have karate after school. It's a sport activity. It's not football or anything like that, but the kids are physically active, whether or not we have an organized team. Do you ladies want to say anything?
Yes, we have something called potpourri on Wednesdays, where during that time we have our physical education teacher, Coach Masalis. He runs something called Fit and Fun that has had volleyball, that has had badminton, that has had other sports in it. We also have access to after school sports programs through our community partners. So there's a football, the Bulldogs are also in our area in Park Heights. So if somebody wants to join that, we can connect people to it. We just don't have it directly like intramural sports or inter-school sports. There are not a lot of elementary schools that have teams, so it's hard to find. It would be hard to find people to play, you know, to play interactively with. But we can connect you with those.
We talked about what the school hours are. Lunch and breakfast are provided. So breakfast starts at 8:15.
Breakfast is
every
on at
morning.
8. Yep.
It
Just 8.
doors
Mhm.
open.
8 on the dot.
Good.
And free breakfast, free lunch every day. Our dress code is Baltimore City Public School dress code, but we are not a uniform school.
Right. We do have Creative City gear.
Yeah, which you're
that can be-
modeling today. It's beautiful.
And so, because some people like the simplicity of being able to say, this is what my kid's going to be wearing. I don't need to go through all this other stuff. So we definitely have T-shirts. We've just opened up a couple of different lines of sweatpants, polos, and things. So for purchase, those items can be purchased.
We had a question about transportation. Unfortunately, we do not provide transportation, but we do try to link parents together in case people need ride assistance. You ladies want to talk more about that?
I don't think I have anything to add to that. We're always working on developing our way of networking parents together with one another for ride assistance. Sometimes someone needs help for limited reasons. Sometimes they need help all year long. And so in many cases, we've been successful with matching families with one another. And in some cases, limited cases, families may be eligible for district provided transportation if they have it written into their IEP, if they have a child who receives special education services and it's written into the IEP, if there's a chronic health condition where we might be able to access transportation for them, or if a family doesn't have permanent housing and we can access transportation that way. So it's a few categories where families can access district provided transportation. It's just a little bit narrow and doesn't necessarily reach everybody who is looking for support with transportation.
Our next question is, how often is arts integration happening? Daily, weekly, by unit, in every class or subject?
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
It's like, for example, we're not a school that says it's Arts Integration Day, so everybody's going to be doing arts integration. It is embedded in everything we do. There are even experiences that come up that have not been planned. That we are blessed with having an arts integration specialist who also teaches some of our art classes, and she gets these opportunities. And I got to tell you, it keeps me on my feet as an administrator, because she'll come up and she'll say, I just got tickets for the entire second grade to go to a show at Center Stage. We've been working on doing blah, 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 and this fits in perfectly. So they've been doing something in the classroom on Harlem Renaissance, and then all of a sudden a play shows up at Center Stage that they didn't know about, but now they have tickets. They start together building an experience where they might be able to use that in their classrooms, and boom, you have arts integration. But then there are the ones that we plan through our trimester projects, that the teams themselves get together and come up with something that they want to do. Sometimes a child's question, a child's inquiry ends up being the seed for something that the class now takes a hold of, and it becomes part of a project that they develop together. So it is happening on the ongoing basis. You can find it I would say you could probably find it somewhere in the building daily, but no, you're not going to walk into, a classroom and I can say, hey, it's arts integration time. Let's go look in this classroom and see some arts integration. Not necessarily like that, because it is a very organic piece of what we do. But it is happening somewhere in the building every single day. I know that for a fact.
Okay, the next one is, when will registration forms be sent out? That is a great question, especially right now in light of everything that's happening. First of all, we would not be sending any registration forms until May, until after everyone had turned in their green cards and we had a clear picture of how many registration forms we're sending. So that's there. I'm sure that we will try to get registration forms out as soon as we can. Logistically, it might be a little later than May 1st. So I would say sometime within the month of May, maybe early June, we will have those registration forms out. It's just a little bit different this year. There's just a little bit of thing going on. Someone wants to know, how often do field trips occur? Tracy kind of talked a little bit about how we get donations of tickets to go places, and that happens relatively frequently. I feel like my child has had more field trips than I did going through elementary school. But do you have like a number you want to throw out there?
Well, I think it also depends on the grade level, and because our field trips are like field experiences, so they're usually tied to something that's going on in the classroom. I would say that there's at least one field trip a month, and I'm going to say at least because for me, I swear it feels like it's a field trip going on all the time, because sometimes during a week the kindergartners went someplace, and then 2 days later the second grade's going someplace, and then on Friday the fifth grade went someplace. Sometimes we have partnerships, like we just had one with the BMA, where the fourth grade had over a series of weeks going back and forth to the BMA as part of a project that they were doing. So the fourth grade, they went 3 times to the BMA for 3 successive weeks. So they're depending on what's going on, a child could be going out of the building once a week, depending on what's going on. We also have what I call a field experience when we have teaching residencies that come in, because then people come in and they work with the students, whether it's the playwriting, we had the Clay Ninja that did the project that you saw with that big mural, woodworking. We've done music, center stage has come in, not just for playwriting, but also for play acting. So I would say your child is probably going to be engaged in some type of field experience at least once a month, but probably more than that.
We had a question about if we had a gym. Currently, we do not. We have a cafetornasium, which is a cafeteria / gym / auditorium. And that's been working out for us. We have a rec center that is just behind us that is undergoing some renovations, and hopefully when those renovations are done, we'll be able to be in there and using the gymnasium. But gym still happens, running around in the cafetornasium happens, dodgeball, all sorts of things that the kids do. They also, when the weather's better, they'll go outside and learn about how to play soccer. We have a basketball court that's an outdoor basketball court that the kids use. So we may not have a thing that's called a gym, but gym happens. Along with that question, it was pictures of the outside of the school. We had a few in the slideshow. I don't know if that was enough. If you'd like to see more, let us know what you want to see. And the last question that goes with it is the environment around the school safe?
I'm going to say we are located in Baltimore City, and our school property has not had incidents on its property in the 7 years that our school's been open. But there have been things that have happened in or around the community that have been we've been contacted to bring our kids in. Those things have happened. It is not frequent. Our kids go out every day, and there have been no issues in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is Park Heights, and there have been things that go on in Park Heights. So there are challenges to security and safety for that neighborhood that I'm pretty sure you are aware of and that you've seen on television. But in our school and on our school property and the way that we have been working with our children, we have not had a safety or security problem with our school and our community when it comes to our program. That's the way I can answer that, because Park Heights is Park Heights, and there is crime and there are things in the city that are going on that we are all very aware of. But we have, and I'm going to knock on wood because of what I just said, but we have not had safety concerns or issues on our property, in or around our property, or with our children. We have not been harmed.
Someone asks about bullying. How does the school identify bullying and address any bullying that occurs? I think that's a great question, and I'm going to let you answer that, Tracy.
Okay. My other meeting's about to start, but I'm going to answer this one before I go. I just saw the Dr. Santelises show up. We follow Baltimore City Public Schools protocol for addressing bullying. It doesn't matter whether a report comes in, but we want it in writing as well, because we have to take statements. We have to go through all of the channels in order to address bullying. We take it very seriously, and we feel that you don't have to figure out whether it's bullying. You don't have to say, I think this is bullying. We need to know. Your child just has to feel uncomfortable. If you contact your teacher and said, my child said this incident happened, and they're thinking they're being bullied, you don't have to worry about whether it's really bullying. That's our job. Your child is uncomfortable. We need to figure out what to do to solve that problem. So we take bullying extremely seriously. We have had issues of people reporting incidents, some of them that were determined they weren't bullying, but it didn't mean that it wasn't handled. There were consequences for behaviors that were inappropriate, and that is how we address any kind of situation where children are behaving inappropriately or making their classmates feel uncomfortable. It doesn't have to have that title in order for it to be addressed, and that is our bottom line. So you don't have to worry about whether it's bullying. You just have to let us know your child is feeling uncomfortable, and we're on it. That's it. That is the bottom
line. What grades are for Girl Scouts? I think Girl Scouts starts in kindergarten and goes to 5th.
I'm gonna dip out, guys, for a little bit. I'll be back. Okay.
See ya. Thanks for being here, Tracy.
No I problem. Can answer about Girl Scouts. We have a really fantastic partnership with Girl Scouts of Central Maryland, who has a special partnership with schools in Park Heights, including ours, called Girls Rise in Park Heights. And so the Girl Scouts has a Girl Scouts robotics team, actually 2, one for the younger students, K through 2, and one for the older students, 3 through 5. They have a Girl Scout troop that has been quiet at our school for a little while, but is about to get back up and running. And there's also a Girl Scouts step team that was about to get started when we went on closure, but it will get started again next year if we don't get started this year. So really the variety of Girl Scouts activities we have at our school can reach girls of all levels. Cub Scouts as well. The Cub Scouts program is a little different. I know this wasn't asked, but let me just address. Our troop has been serving boys of all ages, and we're in a membership drive right now, and so we need a little more participation to have a fully functional troop, but we are intending to serve boys of all ages as well through Cub Scouts.
The next question, and Marisa, you can totally answer this one. Could you talk about teachers and staff demographics? Have a lot of them been at the school since it started? Are many of them parents of current students?
Oh, sure. Those are great questions. We have, as I said really early in the presentation, we started with just grades K through 2, and then we expanded for several years. And so we were adding teachers every year for about 3 or 4 years as we were growing. That said, we have a large number of our original teachers from our first year still with us. And it is so great to have them still with us because they've really become experts in our place-based arts integrated model and are generally our teacher leaders in the building. In addition to that, we have 2, 3, 4, 5 of us on staff, including Ashley and I, who you're looking at now, but 5 of us on staff who also have our children at the school. And those are folks who are in all teachers, our community school coordinator, Ashley and I, who are in more administrative roles, but we all have our children with us at Creative City. So, gosh, did I answer the question? I'm sorry.
Demographics. I can say, you know, we have a mix of white and Black teachers. We have a mix of female and male teachers. A lot of people who come in the school are actually shocked at how many male teachers we have. And we really appreciate the male teachers that we do have. I know that some people like to have a male teacher for their son or their daughter. But yeah, we have a good mix.
We do. And diversity, racial diversity in hiring specifically, diversity in all areas, but racial diversity is something we've been focused on to make sure that we are doing everything we can to build a staff that reflects our students. And so our students can look at our staff and see someone that they feel like they can identify with, either in terms of their background or their gender or their race or some other identity.
Someone asked if we're going to offer this open house as a video to review later. We're hoping to. We are recording it right now. So I don't know what platform we'll be able to put it on because it'll be a pretty large file, but we will work on having it available for people to watch later as well. Somebody asked about the lottery. Somebody got an acceptance letter. Do they still have to be accepted through a lottery? At this time, the lottery is done. The dot lottery is over. However, we still have spaces in some of our grades, and we're rolling through a waiting list. So even if your child didn't participate in the lottery, if you apply later, you would go on the waiting list, and then as your name comes up, we would offer a spot. So if you got an acceptance letter, that's great. And you didn't participate in the lottery, that's just because you applied after the lottery was over and your child is still totally able to come to Create a City, even if they didn't participate in the lottery, as long as there's spots available. We talked about sibling preference. Somebody wants to know about sibling preference and how that works. So once your child is in the school and has been accepted, if you have younger children, those children get first priority at any spots that are available the next year. So if you have, let's say, this is not actually my life, but if I had a 4-year-old right now, I have a kindergartner, my 4-year-old would be able to come to kindergarten when they turn 5 next year. So that's kind of how that would work. So my 5th grader this year, because they were from 5th grade, the kindergartner that came had first priority with any spot that was available. And with kindergarten, it's wide open. So I hope that answers the question. If for instance, you come in this year and you have, say, a 4th grader and a 2nd grader and a kindergartner, and there's spots in 4th grade, but not necessarily in the 2nd grade, that child would go to the top of the waiting list because you've accepted your spot for 4th grade. For an instance. If you've got more questions about that, if you've got a particular situation that you want to talk to me about, we can talk later. Do the after-school activities include kindergartners, and are they a separate fee? That depends on the thing. So Marisa, can you go ahead and answer that one?
There are some opportunities for kindergartners after school, but they're somewhat more limited. And to be very transparent, that's something we've been working on and seeing if we can figure out how to expand for next year. The things I didn't mention are that we also have an after-school art club that had begun fairly recently, and an advanced instrumental ensemble that's focused on 4th and 5th grade that meets all year and is sort of based on student interest and invitation. So we do have after school activities for all levels with the fewest options at this point in time for kindergarten. Karate has a fee that is a sliding scale that's managed by that provider. UEC is a fee-based childcare program that also accepts childcare vouchers for families who are eligible. And then none of our other programs are fee-based.
What resource classes and how often do the kids attend them, daily or quarterly?
Oh.
I can answer that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't do that in the presentation.
Yeah, so our resource classes that we have are music, art, and PE. Those, so they get one of those every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a daily thing, not quarterly. I know sometimes schools will offer like just gym. This is what you get, your 1 week thing, but the kids get a different resource every day. We don't have holiday dances. We do have book fairs. We have book fairs in the fall and in the spring. And we
And
have
I'd
a
add-
play. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
I'm not looking at the chat right now, but regarding dances, Ashley's right. We tend not to have dances, but we do tend to have community celebrations. And so I shared the trunk or treat that we do. We have a back to school barbecue. We have an end of the year barbecue. We have other celebrations
We have the
that pop
concerts.
up. Yeah.
We have
And
the
so we tend
concerts.
to do that type of family inclusive celebration tends to be our style of those kinds of activities.
Do we have a playground? We do have a traditional playground that is also a Baltimore City playground that we use that's right next to the school. The kids don't have to access it by any roads, like they take the sidewalk right on over to the playground. But we also have an outdoor classroom that the kids have moving pieces that they can use, like buckets and logs. The garden is also in our outdoor classroom. And we have access to a huge field that the kids can run around and play in. So we kind of have lots of areas for the kids to be in, depending on the day and the time and all of that stuff. The next question is about hygiene and washing hands, sanitizing things, and keeping toilets clean, given a high priority. I know that's on everybody's mind right now. We have a great team, janitorial team, that keeps things very tidy and clean in the hallways and the bathrooms. I'm always pretty impressed because I feel like when I was growing up, the bathroom was not a place I wanted to be at in public school. But we really try to stay on top of it and keep things as clean as possible. We have soap, we have paper towels. Teachers have hand sanitizer, Clorox wipes in the classroom. And then if we need some of those things, we try to get donations pretty quickly. We have a partnership with a church in our neighborhood who has been bringing us school supplies. And some of the things that they have brought have been those Clorox wipes and been hand sanitizer and stuff like that. So we feel like we're pretty on top of being sanitary as a school. Marisa, do you want to say anything about that?
No, that pretty much covers it. We follow the same cleaning checklist that Baltimore City Schools expects of traditional schools, and we are really pleased with our custodial team. I think we're very lucky to have a really good team on site.
Somebody wants to know about the racial diversity makeup of our students. Our students majority are Black students. We have a good portion of our students who are also mixed, and we have about 15% of our students who are white. So that's about our demographic makeup. Someone asked if students are welcomed into the classrooms periodically to simply volunteer or monitor behavior.
Parents?
Yeah, parents. Are parents welcomed in the classrooms?
Yes, big yes. And so as a parents-founded school, parent engagement is really woven into the fabric of who we are. Different schools have different expectations about how parents interact with the school. We really welcome parents in and encourage it. We do ask them to stop in at the main office, sign in, make sure we know that they're there. We'll give the teacher a heads up that they have a guest coming to the classroom. But certainly that can happen at any time. The best thing is if a parent knows that they can come in on Wednesday morning, to give the teacher a heads up in advance, so that teacher might be able to plan a way for the parent to support whatever is happening in the classroom during that time. It's hard to put a volunteer to work on the fly, but if we have advance notice, we can often plan for that too, if that's the type of role that you'd like to take in the classroom.
Hold on, going down. Is our school air conditioning? Yes, ma'am, it is. And we are very thankful for that, that we are able to keep our heating and our air going. So don't worry about that. It's not brutally hot in our classrooms. So does the school cost? No, we are a free public school. The charter schools mean that we have some autonomy with the way that we teach and the kind of the structure that we have, but we are still a Baltimore City public school, and so we are free. We don't have any fees associated with coming to Creative City at all. Do we have graduation ceremonies for kindergarten and 5th grade students? We try not to call it a graduation because graduation is meant for 12th grade, but we do have celebration ceremonies for kindergarten and for 5th grade. And I feel really sad this year because I have a kindergartner and a 5th grader, and I'm not sure if we're going to get to have those, you know, depending on if we go back to school by the end of the year. But yeah, we have had those closing celebratory ceremonies every year that we've had those grades. And that is the end of the questions. If I missed one, speak now.
I will. I want to make sure that folks know how to reach us if they have a question afterwards. Maybe can you put your email address in the chat if you haven't already? We are still working. We're just doing it from home. And so if anyone has a burning question or something that maybe feels a little bit individualized that you'd rather ask one-to-one, get in touch with Ashley and she can forward to me or to Tracy if it's something that we would have more information about. But we really are very willing to continue the dialogue with you individually if there's some personal questions you'd like to
ask. Someone asked about karate, how many times a week, and Girl Scouts, how many times a week, and if they meet on site. They do meet on site. Karate, I think, meets 2 or 3 times a week, and Girl Scout meets like once or twice a week.
The Girl Scouts
on the troop.
Yeah, it depends on which Girl Scouts activity it is. My daughter was in the younger grades Girl Scouts robotics, and they met once a week until very recently. And some of the other Girl Scouts activities might have different meeting schedules. I would need to look at my master list.
Right. All right, this has been great. I'm so glad that so many of you were able to tune in, I guess, log in and be with us today. I'm sorry that, you know, things got canceled and rearranged, but I'm glad that we are able to do that. We live in a world where we're able to do something like this. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all for coming. You know where to find us if you have questions. I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting in a moment.